As you've seen through these videos, Jupyter is not just the interactive notebooks, but an entire toolkit for scientific computing and data science that provides the building blocks for data analyses. For the last 3 years, after learning from users in the community and using the notebooks themselves, Project Jupyter has focused on streamlining the entire data science and software development process to improve workflows and the overall experience for both users and developers. The result of this effort is JupyterLab, an interactive development environment that runs in your browser for working with notebooks, code, and data, and that integrates all the Jupyter tools into a comprehensive workspace. JupyterLab enables users to use notebooks side by side with text editors, terminals, and data file viewers in a tabbed work area. JupyterLab will eventually replace the classic notebook environment, and for users, transitioning from the classic notebook environment to JupyterLab should be nearly seamless. JupyterLab is intended to be highly extensible, allowing for the swapping in and out of tools, themes, and renderers where no one extension takes precedence over another. This enables members of the community who build their own Jupyter extensions to incorporate their extensions smoothly into their workflows and easily share their tools with others. JupyterLab itself is developed on top of Phosphor.js, a new JavaScript library for building extensible, high-performance desktop-style web applications. Modern JavaScript technologies such as TypeScript, React, Lerna, Yarn, and Webpack are used in the development of JupyterLab. JupyterLab is a collaboration between the core Jupyter team and developers from Bloomberg and Anaconda, previously known as Continuum Analytics, the company that provides the Anaconda distribution of Python. Over 100 contributors from the broader Jupyter community helped build JupyterLab in addition to the core JupyterLab team. In early 2010, Project Jupyter announced the release of JupyterLab Beta, the first in a series of JupyterLab beta releases leading up to the full 1.0 release. Most of the major features of the classic Jupyter Notebook are implemented and usable in the beta releases, with only a handful of exceptions. There are many new features not in the classic notebook, and with each release, additional notebook features are added. The beta releases provide incremental improvements and stability, and with the 1.0 release, JupyterLab will have full support and stability for extensions that will enable fully customized experiences for users. The primary documentation for JupyterLab can be found at jupyterlab.readthedocs.io. And the newest JupyterLab developments can be tracked at github.com/JupyterLab/JupyterLab, which is also where you can report bugs that you find in the software. Before filing an issue, try searching for your issue using Google or search the JupyterLab GitHub repo. Since Jupyter is an open source project, the majority of project questions and discussions are available online. I am often able to resolve my issues this way, or at least find the correct GitHub issue to monitor as the project works toward a resolution. To file a bug after you have made a valiant effort to find the answer to your question, submit an issue, following the JupyterLab contributing guidelines. To ask a new question about JupyterLab, do so on the Jupyter mailing list. Daily JupyterLab conversation occurs on Gitter. Trying JupyterLab. The Jupyter project has generously launched a hosted public binder service of JupyterLab to provide users with the opportunity to explore and experiment with the JupyterLab environment. This hosted version of JupyterLab launches in your browser and opens to the main work area with a sample Jupyter notebook open in the dock panel on the right side of the screen and a file manager and tabs in the left sidebar. At the top of the JupyterLab application is a menu bar that provides access to JupyterLab functions, along with their keyboard shortcuts when available. New JupyterLab extensions can also create new drop-down menus in this menu bar. The default menus in JupyterLab include File, which includes actions related to files and directories, Edit, which is content-aware and enables actions for editing documents, View, which provides options for changing the appearance of JupyterLab, including hiding the file manager, and also changing from single document mode, which only displays one active tab at a time, to presentation mode, where all your open files are displayed as tabs in the right side of the work area, Run, which provides commands for running code in notebooks and code consoles, Kernel, a carryover from the classic notebook environment that provides options for managing kernels, Tabs, a list of the open documents and files in the dock panel, Settings, which provides actions to change the JupyterLab theme and settings in your editors, And finally, Help, a drop-down list of JupyterLab references and links to common data analysis packages. Within this online demo, the JupyterLab.md file will walk you through a JupyterLab tutorial created by the Jupyter team, including context menus for working with different file types. These file types include the CSV file viewer that allows you to set your delimiters and resize your columns, the image viewer, the GeoJSON viewer for spatial data, and even FASTA or FASTA files for bioinformatics. This instance of JupyterLab even uses an extension that allows you to pull and save files from Google Drive. As you can see, JupyterLab is an exciting evolution of the Jupyter Notebook environment. Now let's install JupyterLab on our own machines. To install JupyterLab with Conda, return to your command line interface and type conda install-c conda-forge JupyterLab. To install with pip, use pip install JupyterLab. As the documentation states, for all methods of installation, conda or pip, if you are using a version of Jupyter Notebook earlier than 5.3, then you must also run an additional command after installation to enable the JupyterLab server extension. This is Jupyter space server extension space enable space --py space JupyterLab space --sys prefix. To check which version of the Jupyter Notebook you are running, type Jupyter space notebook space --version. I'm running version 5.4.1, so I do not need to run the enable server extension command. After installing JupyterLab, type Jupyter space lab, all in lowercase, into the command line. This should launch JupyterLab. So if typing JupyterLab doesn't invoke JupyterLab in your browser, or if you ever accidentally close your browser window while you're working, JupyterLab can be relaunched by entering the notebook server's URL, which is localhost:8888 in the browser. As we observed in the Binder instance, JupyterLab launches in your browser to the main work area with the file manager and tabs on the left sidebar, but in this case, the launcher is displayed on the right side of the work area, or the dock panel. The launcher displays options to initiate various activities, including opening one of several flavors of the new Jupyter Notebooks available in JupyterLab, using the Python 2, Python 3, or R kernels, which are the kernels I have installed on my machine. There are over 100 kernels available to use in Jupyter, including Julia, Scala, and more. JupyterLab provides a high level of integration between notebooks, documents, and activities. Just keep in mind that while in beta, it is likely that some JupyterLab extensions may not yet work. The JupyterLab notebooks are designed to maintain classic notebook functionality, with many additional features to facilitate a more seamless workflow and overall improved user experience. You can even access the classic notebook environment in JupyterLab by going to the File menu, then selecting Launch Classic Notebook. I can also return to the launcher through the File menu to open a console to use IPython, or open a terminal emulator, or a text editor. You can customize the built-in text editor under Settings, choosing your preferred key mappings, theme, and indentation level. You can also pull up a Jupyter Notebook to work alongside your text editor. You can move cells around within a single notebook and also pull up a second notebook and move cells between notebooks. Additional actions you can take in JupyterLab include running code blocks interactively from text files and linking a code console to a notebook kernel to explore code interactively. These steps should get you up and running with your notebooks in JupyterLab. For a deeper dive into JupyterLab functionality, refer to jupyterlab.readthedocs.io. Installing extensions. JupyterLab's extension system enables customization of the JupyterLab environment. In fact, JupyterLab is solely built on a series of extensions that work together to provide core tools and functionality, including the notebooks, terminals, file browser, and the menu system. JupyterLab extensions enable you to work with many data formats, including GeoJSON, JSON, and CSV, as demonstrated in the Binder instance earlier in this video. Here we'll follow the latest documentation on installing extensions. Currently, you must have Node.js version 4 or later installed in order to install JupyterLab extensions. Node.js version 4 can be installed using Conda, with conda install-c conda-forge node.js, or with Homebrew on a Mac. using brew install node, or through the Node.js website directly. Once you have installed Node.js version 4 or greater, then install your desired extension using JupyterLab extension install my-extension, where my-extension is the name of your desired extension. You can specify a specific version of your extension by typing the @ symbol and then the version number, like so. JupyterLab extension install my-extension at 1.2.3. For additional information about installing, uninstalling, and disabling extensions, see the JupyterLab documentation at jupyterlab.readthedocs.io. Some exciting new extensions include draw.io, a diagram editor for JupyterLab, scripted forms, which provide GUI front-ends to Python packages in JupyterLab, and the GitHub extension, which is in pre-alpha and allows you to run a notebook from GitHub, even when you do not have write privileges. Again, more information about extensions can be found in the extensions section of the JupyterLab documentation. The Jupyter project continues to welcome contributions to JupyterLab. Areas to contribute include developing your own JupyterLab extensions, contributing to development, documentation, and design through GitHub, and joining the conversation through the various community channels. Enjoy exploring JupyterLab.